Hi team, so my second video on stress and the human adaptation process and how stress can affect that and specifically how it can affect our progress in the gym towards the goals that we have in the gym. So whether you're looking to lose body fat, get leaner, same thing, increase muscle mass, get stronger, get fitter, whether you're looking to become an athlete, whether you're looking to just live a longer, healthier life, all of this requires some form of adaptation. And it's really important that we understand how to get that adaptation, how we can encourage that process, and how we can sometimes block our own process by going too hard. So, the last video I talked about sympathetic being our fight or flight response, parasympathetic being our rest and digest. Check out that video, it's the most recent one on my YouTube channel. If you didn't see that, it'll give you a better understanding for this video. What we want to do is we want to keep our sympathetic response when we're in the gym, and then try and get out of it as soon as possible when we're out of the gym, and be aware of the other stresses in our life. The problem is we can't get rid of all the stresses in our life. We have to go to work, we have families, we have mortgages, we have funerals, we have weddings, all of those things which classically are the most stressful things in life, but we also have things on top of that. Bad traffic, being late because the trains weren't running properly, the burst water pipe in your kitchen when you wake up, like all of these little things, day-to-day life, really do add up. And what I'm trying to get at is that if we're just piling on more stresses by just going to the gym and training harder, dieting harder, they're all stressors. The body sees those as stressors. If we look at a calorie deficit, it's well accepted that to lose weight, you do need to be in a calorie deficit, generally speaking. But people get stuck into that and they go lower and lower and lower, always looking for that next bit of adaptation. It's never enough. And they never give themselves a break and come out of that stress response into more of a rest and digest mode and to let their bodies recover. So just going on a downwards trend, where does that stop? If we start on 2,000 calories and we cut 100 calories and we lose some body fat, and then 2 months later, we've stopped adapting because the body will get used to that and it will stop losing fat. And so then we need to go another 100, and then another 100, and then another 100. And eventually we end up eating 600 calories a day because that's what we've done and it's always worked. Eventually your body will say no, you'll get sick, you'll get injured, you'll just never be able to lose body fat. And the same goes for strength training or conditioning. If we take a beginner and they can add 5 kilos to their back squat every single week, that's because they're getting a small stressor that their body's not used to, and so they adapt to it. Over time, your body becomes accustomed to that stressor, and it becomes too much of a good thing. And the body stops responding, and we can't get stronger in our back squat. We're suddenly having to bail out of weights. We're not seeing that increase each week. We're getting injuries, and so we think, okay, well, let's add in more squats. Let's squat 3 times a week because that's surely got to be better, more of a good thing. Well, actually, what happens is our cup gets filled up with stressors, especially if we're not looking after our lifestyle stressors, and we don't make adaptations anymore. So what can we do to mediate this? The best way to think about it is that for every stressor, we need to be trying to take ourselves out of stress. So things that activate the parasympathetic tone or mode in our bodies or encourage that parasympathetic state are going to be things that are traditionally slower and easier. So if we think about easy aerobic work, and by easy, I mean talking pace. Imagine going for a 30 to 40 minute walk, how that would feel. We should be doing that on the bike, on the rower. We can do that with gymnastic holds, things that are easy for the individual. So what's easy for an elite athlete would be training for someone who's a beginner in fitness. It's really important that we see that differentiation between individuals and we design it accordingly. So easy aerobic work is one thing that we can do. We can do more Eastern flow type state stuff. Think about meditation, think about yoga, think about just focusing on breath. So what I mean by that is you're feeling stressed, you're at your computer, and rather than just getting sucked into that, just taking a second to be mindful, and so mindfulness is a really good practice, and just take 10 deep, slow breaths. If you do that the next time you feel stressed at work, I guarantee you'll come out of those 10 breaths and you'll just have a little reset. You'll feel a little bit less anxious, a little bit less worked up, and it might have just given you some perspective on the thing that stressed you out. So doing things like that and taking those into account are really important. And another thing is also just being aware of how much you're training and how much you're dieting, and taking time to step back from that. I'm not saying we shouldn't train. We absolutely need that stressor to get the adaptation we want from training, but we need to just be able to step back from that sometimes and train less, diet less. If we're on a diet and we're trying to lose weight long term, it's got to be a long term goal, then maybe we diet for 6 to 8 weeks, or we're in a calorie deficit for 6 to 8 weeks. I don't like the word diet, I'll stop using that. And then we have 3 to 4 weeks where we're not in a calorie deficit and we're maintaining. It just gives the body a break, time to adjust to what it's done, to what it's adapted to, and then we can go into another calorie deficit if that's what you want to do, that cycle routine, rather than just constantly being in an ever downward calorie deficit, which ends up in trouble, frankly, and with no adaptation. Same with training, just adding more and more sessions isn't always the answer. Sometimes less can be more, especially if you have a hectic lifestyle. So it's all very well a full-time athlete training twice a day if they're making progress. But if you are doing a full-time job and you've got a family and a social life to support, and maybe that job's quite stressful, and maybe you've got a couple of kids that love them as much as you do, they actually cause you quite a lot of stress, getting up early, being woken in the night, that sort of thing. Maybe you don't sleep great, maybe you struggle with your nutrition. Training twice a day isn't for you. Okay, training 3 to 4 times a week, quality sessions, not just thrashing yourself mindlessly, is going to give you much more bang for your buck, something your body can actually adapt to, rather than just putting it in the hole. Because if you look at this cup, and if we are already full to the brim with stressors, and then we go to the gym and go absolutely crazy in a conditioning piece, we're going to struggle to adapt to that. Now the problem is that beginners and people who are new to training, your body will adapt to any new stressor, and so they go to the gym, they train really hard, and they get led astray by frankly incompetent coaches who don't know how to get adaptation without just smashing people, and people end up going way too hard from the start. They see some changes initially, but long term those changes aren't sustainable, and so they will in the end drop off the wagon and disappear. They die the death of a gym goer, and that's what we're trying to avoid. At Lift Off, that's something we're really conscious of, and I'm constantly preaching about pacing, about being moderate, about always having something left in the tank, because 90% of our members are working family people who have a lot of stresses outside the gym. The gym should leave you feeling better. The gym should not crush you. And that comes back to this very basic principle around sympathetic and parasympathetic states, and knowing how to be in the two different states, and knowing how to activate the parasympathetic state. I know I've rambled on for a long time now. There's more to go into on this. Maybe some specific examples around getting out and in stress, and some specific examples for you maybe of ways you can mediate your stress. If you've got any questions from today's video, please do drop me a line. If you're in the Bishop Stortford area and you're interested in learning more about training well and learning how to move better, come to Lift Off. We have top quality coaches who will coach you in movement and also in lifestyle and managing this sort of stuff. Hope you enjoyed the video. Watch out for my next one, and I'll catch you soon.